We fight for our survival.
In this video, I'm going to show you 8 different ways to throw a spark from a ferro rod. I'm Will, and welcome to Will Survive. Number 1, I'm calling the newbie method, which is where you hold the ferro rod with one hand and the knife upside down and make scrapings by moving your knife hand over or on top of the ferro rod. The problem with this method is that it's very likely, because this hand is moving towards your tinder bundle, that you scatter your tinder bundle everywhere, and then you have to collect everything up, put it back in your pile, and then start over. And because neither hand is stabilized, you're kind of throwing sparks everywhere instead of right where you need them. So I definitely don't suggest number 1 here, which I'm calling the newbie method. So number 2, the hover and pull method. Just like number 1, but instead of the knife being upside down, the knife is right side up. And instead of pushing the knife over the rod, you'll pull the rod towards you on the top of the blade. So this one, again, nothing is stabilized. Really sends the spark up this way and up that way. You see how the sparks seem to go up and over instead of down into your tinder bundle? So number 2 is another one I don't really suggest. So let's move on to number 3, the upside down hover and pull method. So it starts like number 1, but instead of pushing the knife, you're going to hover both again and then pull the ferro rod towards you. So this method is a little better because you notice the sparks tend to go at least downward, but it's hard to get close to it with everything moving around like that. If you want to learn a bunch more about ferro rods themselves, click on the video up here, and I'll add it as a watch next video at the end of this one so you can finish this one and then watch that one. Which brings us to number 4, the leg stabilizer method. So in this method, we're going to want to place our foot near the tinder bundle so that we can stabilize our bicep on our thigh, our forearm on our shin, and our fist on our boot or shoe. And this one, again, we're going to have the knife upside down, and we're going to pull from below so that we're as close to the tinder bundle as we can get. This one is a pretty good one and suggested for a large tinder bundle or bird's nest. So you have everything, your knife hand is fully stabilized as you pull back with the ferro rod. So it's a lot like number 3, but much more stable, and therefore this is one that I actually suggest. So they're getting better as we go down the line here. Which brings us to number 5, which I'm going to call the pin and pull method. So this one is a lot like number 4, but instead of using our whole leg and everything, we're just going to use our fist. So we're going to put our knife upside down, and we're going to put our fist onto the ground near our tinder bundle, and then pull our ferro rod towards us again. This is a pretty good method because you can always adjust this knife, so if it's horizontal, there's not going to be any room, but you can always move your hand to get just the right angle so that when you do pull, you get the sparks pretty close to it because your knife hand is pretty stable. And another thing about this one is you don't always have to put your fist down. You can use the butt of the knife as well to take some of the pressure from your fist, and you can rock it up and down wherever you need to get just the right angle. Now on to number 6, which I'm going to call the blade pinch method. So with this one, you're going to pinch it down with the blade so it doesn't move around. And then you're going to put your ferro rod on top of the back of the knife and then pull towards you, pinning down and then pulling towards you. So that one is pretty good. I kind of like that one because you don't get sparks going everywhere. It is fairly stable. Your hand your fist itself isn't stable like in the last one, but because you're pushing down on the blade, the whole thing is pretty stable, especially if you use your finger on the top of your ferro rod. If your fist is all the way down, which is good for stability, your ferro rod is a little too close. You see how it's touching right there? It's kind of hard to get the right angle to do it. And another little variation, you could put your finger on top to get more stability along the whole thing. Let's get a bare part thing. You're never going to get to go with the black. You have to scrape off the black till you get to the chrome before any sparks are going to come off. Yeah, if I raise my fist, it's not quite as sturdy, but it's not bad at all. So I definitely like number 6, the blade pinch method. Now let's move on to number 7, which is the rod pinch method, which is very similar, but in this one, instead of pinching your tinder bundle down with the knife, you're going to do that same thing with your rod. So if this is my tinder bundle, I can hold it down, and then I can go up and down my ferro rod, which gives me sparks in each direction instead of just one direction. So you can basically shower your tinder bundle with sparks. Like that. So I really like that method, especially for beginners, because it's very easy to get your tinder going, especially if it's a very small pile or it's a little wet and you need lots of sparks to get it going. So another thing to know when you're doing the rod pinch method, you want it as vertical as possible as opposed to horizontal. The more horizontal it is, the more likely you're going to bang and rub your knuckles raw on the ground or the stump or whatever you're using. So nice and vertical with this one, and then again up and down. Because of the possible knuckle scraping issue of this one, a larger rod is going to be better than a smaller rod. Which brings us to number 8, the thumb assist method. So this one can be good if you're trying to catch something very small, like a small pile of fat wood or a small pile of curls or shavings from a piece of wood. Works best with a small, soft rod and a striker as opposed to your knife. So with this one, you're going to hold the majority of the rod in your hand and only exposing just a little bit of the end. So with this one, you're going to want to just have a little bit exposed. Put the butt of your knife or your scraper on there. Put your thumb on your scraper or the back of the knife, and then put your other thumb on top of the first thumb, and then just flick it. So as you can see with this, I'm not getting any sparks because both of these rods are pretty dense. So again, this one works better with a very soft metal rod, where both of these are fairly dense. Demonstration, because you can put the whole thing in your hand and just have a little bit exposed with the back of your knife. This one also works better if you have a actual striker, which I don't know if I brought one out on me, but either way, for demonstration purposes, you just flick a little bit. You see, I can't even get a spark with this. There you go. There you go.
We fight for our survival.